If your goal is to do this, then keep watching. Hey guys, my name is Zach Ferguson, and this channel is all about helping you guys reach your tricking goals. I may not be the best tricker, but hopefully my experience can help you guys become the best. This is a tutorial for a Reversao. And it was requested by one of my subscribers, Ozix. Reversao is one of those tricks that seems really easy because it's just one big motion, but it's actually a lot harder to pull off than it looks when you try it. I'm sure if you tried it for yourself, you'll feel that for yourself. Reversao comes from capoeira, and it is one of those tricks that relies a little bit heavily on flexibility, and it also kind of is powered by a kick. Because of this. It's a trick that is often confused with a front handspring or a cart semi, but it is its own trick, and I will explain the differences for you in just a minute. Because my movement style is kind of stiff and powerful, this took a good bit of time investment for me to get this to where I want it, but I think I have it to a relatively good place now. There's a few different ways you can approach this, but I think that there's only one really efficient way, so I'm gonna go ahead and teach you only one method in this tutorial. The only prerequisites you're gonna need are maybe a compasso. You could have a front handspring to kind of teach you the same similar shape, but it's usually a different leg than you front handspring on. And you're probably gonna need a certain amount of flexibility in your bridge position to make this happen. But my bridge is still far from good, so it's not impossible if your bridge is not very good. It's mainly about what your hips are doing flexibility-wise, rather than what your arms are doing, but both are a little bit necessary. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get to the quick tutorial.
Take them off.
All right, so what is a Reversao? A Reversao is kind of like a hyper compasso, or it's a front handspring where you go on a 45-degree angle and you actually kick with the opposite leg than you normally kick with your front handspring for your twisting side. So for example, I kick with my right leg for my normal front handspring, but for a Reversao, you kick with your left leg. You can also think of it as a front walkover, but on a 45 to higher degree angle and with the opposite leg than you normally do, unless you have both sides front walkover. So what's the difference between a cart semi and a Reversao? A cart semi is where you do your cartwheel, you are kicking with your normal cartwheeling leg, which means that you are kicking up with your right leg if you twist to your left, and then you are picking up one hand and turning 180 degrees so that you're facing your momentum again, and you land on the leg that you kicked initially with the other leg kind of up in the air, and then that leg lands afterwards. So it's a similar arched shape, but it's actually the opposite leg, and the hand placement is a little bit different. The difference between a front handspring and a Reversao is a front handspring is entirely linear. So you're going straight forward, and normally, again, you're kicking with that right leg and landing on that right leg if you are doing a front handspring. For a Reversao, what you're doing is you're stepping across, so you're taking a step like you're gonna do a cheat setup or something, and then you place your hands like you're gonna do a front handspring with your right leg in front if you twist to your left, and then you drive backwards with your left leg and it comes over, but because you have this twisting momentum, it's actually going to make you kind of turn and go on a slight not over the top angle when you're doing this. This is also one of the things that makes it really hard because you're getting pulled to your right if you twist to your left and you kick that way. And so you have to fight with your core and hold that arch to stand all the way back up, or else you're just gonna get pulled to the side. So what you wanna do first is you wanna start with just a compasso. A compasso is just a touchdown hook kick. Make sure you have a really solid compasso and you can hook kick it properly, and it's not some kind of crescent kick. With a compasso, it's kind of hard to crescent just because you are having your hand down like that, but just make sure you are driving through your target that you are visualizing or that you are looking at with your heel. That is going to give you the correct motion. So you should be pulling using your hamstrings and your glutes pulling backwards behind you as you're doing this hook kick, making sure that your right hand is firmly on the ground. Make sure that you can make it smooth, so you step across, plant the hand, hook kick, and then you end facing back the direction that you started, so you're looking back at your target and you're just standing there as if you didn't do anything. Then what you want to do is you want to do this tiny motion with just a barely little tiny jump. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go for your compasso, we're gonna go relatively slow, and then when you plant that hand down, you're gonna do your hook kick, but you're gonna let that hook kick come all the way down to the ground. If you're doing it properly, you should end up facing your direction of momentum. So for example, if I am stepping across to my left and placing my right hand down, and I do my hook kick, it should come slightly across the target and maybe a little bit up, and then land again facing my toes in the direction of momentum that I started facing when I went to put my hand down at the beginning, if that makes sense. Right now, that's all you have to do. Just do that a couple times, get used to that motion, because that is the kicking shape. It's stepping across, putting the hand down, kicking over, landing that left foot, and then from there, we're gonna try and lift our hips some more. So at this point, you can use two hands, but I'd recommend maybe still using one, because when you use two hands, you're not gonna be able to hold both hands on the ground the whole time. So it encourages you to kind of spring off, which we will do later. But right now, I think you should just use the one hand so that you can focus on being in kind of like a bridge position with your hips, or like a tabletop position or something like that. From there, what you're gonna do is you're gonna do the same motion, kick across, still go slow, and try to get your butt off the ground. Try to lift your hips as high as you can when you're landing. It's gonna be almost virtually impossible to do this and actually keep yourself up on one arm, so you can catch with your other arm behind you if you need to, but just try to land in a single leg glute bridge on your left leg with your right leg hovering off of the ground and relatively straight, almost pushing your right hip towards the ceiling if you can. This can take a long time to get used to, so don't beat yourself up if you have to work on this for a while. Once you got that down, we're gonna start adding a little bit of momentum. So practice stepping across, trying to go completely straight. Don't step across so that you are facing back the way you came from. So what I mean is, if I'm starting here and I step across, I wanna be going completely this way. You don't want to have your foot turned back this direction, or else you're just gonna twist your hips sideways and not over the top. But basically, you're stepping across and then you are planting that hand and going over and trying to keep that arched shape with your glute flexed and your hip pushed forward. So you're creating an arch from your right hand down to your toes, all the way arched through your entire body, and trying to hit the ground with your balls of your feet, or even flat-footed right now on your left foot, and just hold that shape as much as you can before you fall down, because you're gonna fall down. So you step across, plant your hand, kick backwards, and it's gonna go on that 45-degree angle. Keep that right leg off the ground at all costs, touch that left leg, and then hold, and then collapse. From there, it's time to start planting the other hand. So all you're gonna do is you're gonna step across and then plant both hands as if you were going to do a front handspring. Just make sure that you step across with that right leg, because a lot of times when you add this, what's gonna happen is you're gonna step across, you're gonna plant those two hands, but you didn't actually step across, and you just feel like you did because you were planting those two hands, and your left leg is still in front, and then you just plant it and you do this weird cartwheel thing. You're like, what happened? So make sure that you step all the way across as if you're gonna do that compasso, but then you go only forward when you plant your hands down, and you kick backwards really hard with that left leg. Try to hold that arch shape. You're going to fall unless you push off really hard, but right now I don't want you to push off really hard. Just step across, kick backwards, drive through as fast as you can, hold that arch shape, because that is what's gonna allow you to land later. Hold it and then collapse. And then from there, you're gonna spring off like a front handspring. So if you don't have a front handspring yet, you do not need it to learn this, but it's gonna feel very similar. So what you need to do is push extremely hard, but still hold that shape. So what happens a lot of times is people will do this motion and they'll either not push, or they'll push really hard, and when they push really hard, they tuck. That is extremely detrimental. Do not tuck when you're trying to do your Reversao at all. Essentially, you want to make sure that your shoulder angle is all the way open, and you don't want it to be out to the side like this. It's got to be completely open like this when you're pushing. So even when you're reaching down, you're probably going to have a very acute shoulder angle. You want to make sure that you get all the way open when you are doing this kick backwards for your Reversao, because then you'll have more power and you'll have finished more of the flip before you actually push off, and then it'll be easier to land. But basically all you're doing is you're flicking your wrists and you are pushing through your shoulders. So like this and like this at the same time, but try not to bend too much of your arms to push. Do your best, like you're gonna bend a little bit, but do your best to flick and push through your shoulders like this. And that is going to help you to get more power than actually bending and pushing. Although I'm sure in my examples, I'm bending and pushing. It's just relatively inefficient compared to that motion. Try to push more with your shoulders and your wrists than your arms, but you're probably gonna push with your arms a little bit, like your triceps. But from there, it's just doing that motion over and over again, stepping across, kicking backwards as hard as you can, using your glutes and your back and your hamstrings, and just driving that hook kick sideways and over the top, and then pushing really hard, and then trying to pull your head up, and hopefully you'll get your reversal. So let's move on to common mistakes. So I personally like to train this in socks, simply because it's really, really hard for me to do this in socks. So if I can get it in socks without slipping all over the place, I'm still gonna slip a little bit, but if I can land it in socks, then that actually shows me that I am capable of landing it a lot easier with bare feet because I have a lot more friction. So my technique has to be better with socks on than with bare feet. So whenever I want to like drop the weights like Rock Lee, I'll just be like, I'll take my socks off and then defeat not slip around as much and have more friction on the ground and be easier to do tricks. But the first common mistake that is the most detrimental is not pushing that left hip and that right hip forward. You gotta arch your hips so much, you have to pelvic thrust and you have to hold it the whole time. If you collapse at your hips at all and you kind of do a squat motion or you stick your butt out backwards and you make like a more of a 90-degree angle with your hips, then your butt is gonna pull you down to the ground immediately and you're not gonna be able to stand up. Reversal is gonna feel a lot like doing a kip up and landing on your left leg and standing up. You're gonna have to have this like long rope arched shape to pull you up. If you collapse it, then you're gonna be falling back down the way you are collapsing. You have to keep your momentum going that way at all costs. I forgot to mention this, but basically the way you want to think about it is when you land that left foot, try to keep walking forward with that right foot. That really helps me out to stand up because I just think about taking another step like I'm just taking a stroll down the street. So a good thing to help you with practicing this shape is doing glute bridges. Single leg glute bridges are the best, but if you aren't strong enough to do that yet, you can do double leg glute bridges, just regular glute bridges on the ground. You just lay down, push your hips up. You can do it holding, you can do it repping them out, pushing your hips up like this, and that can develop the strength for you. But that is a very important common mistake that you don't want to miss. So make sure that you are flexing your left glute extremely hard and you are making that arch shape from your shoulder or even your arms down to your toes. You want it to be completely arched and flexed and holding tension the whole time. The next common mistake I see the most is not pushing enough. So if you have the flexibility, then you can basically just keep your arms straight. And if you kick hard enough, then your arms will just be a stilt for your body to go over, touch the ground, and then you can just simply stand up. But if you're lacking the flexibility even a little bit, then you're gonna need to push really hard. If you don't push hard enough, then you're gonna collapse or you're gonna fall down sideways and you're not gonna know why. So make sure you're filming yourself so you can see what you're doing wrong and you can analyze and compare it. But even the other day when I was filming examples for this, I was like, why am I not landing this? And then I realized, oh, I wasn't even pushing. So make sure you are really pushing through when you kick, but make sure you don't push too early. You have to push kind of at the last second. So you kick over and then right before your foot lands, that's when you're going to push off. The next common mistake is kicking too sideways. If you kick across too sideways, then your leg is actually gonna stay very close to the floor and you're not gonna be able to get this over the top motion. So make sure that you, when you plant those hands, are kicking almost a little up because you're naturally gonna turn sideways in this motion. If you kick too sideways, then you'll introduce a lot of twist, so you'll be like twisting really fast when you land, and also you won't have that shape, so even if you do land it, it'll look super weird and you're like, well, that doesn't quite look like a reversal. Why? It's because you're kicking too sideways. And the next common mistake I see a lot is getting your footing mixed up. So you always have to make sure that you take that big step across, otherwise you won't do the correct shape because you'll be kicking the wrong leg. So if you wind up and you don't kick the right leg, then you're probably gonna end up doing a cartwheel, and then you might do a cart semi, and then you're gonna be like, wow, I got a reversal, and then you watch the footage and you're like, heck. But sometimes also what happens is people take too small of a step, and when they take too small of a step, then they don't have the power of separation to pull their legs over, and also it makes it to where their shape is a lot smaller. So make sure you step really wide. You can look at people like Jordan A, or even how Ahmed does his rise. They're taking this huge step forward and then kicking backwards and then turning their body for their respective trick. So make sure you're taking a big old step before you even plant those hands. So you want to imagine that you're trying to cover as much distance as possible with this Reversao until you push, and then you go straight under yourself. So I hope that helped you get or improve your Reversao. Reversao can be pretty tricky, especially when you're comboing it. It's something that I personally like to front swing out of like aerial semi, but it's also relatively hard. You can watch my video on me trying to learn that transition. But if you are comboing it and you're not doing it like a front swing, then all you really need to remember is to deliberately take that big step out to the side and forward. And then when you plant your hands, it'll be easy. If you are going too quickly and you spin too much, you're almost always gonna fail it, or you're gonna get mixed up with the steps. So for me, when I'm comboing it, I always make sure that I take that huge step and I look at where I wanna go, and then I continue with the Reversao. But it always feels like there's that little bit of pause at the beginning of your Reversao when you're comboing it. To us as the practitioner, it's gonna feel like a really long time, but to the person watching, you're still moving, so it's not actually gonna look like you're going that slow. So just make sure you don't rush. But if that did help you, then please leave a like on the video. Please leave a comment down below and let me know if it helped you, or if there's something else that you want to see from me. And please subscribe to my channel so that you can help me on my quest to 1,000 subs. Until next time, please stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you guys later. From there, add the two-hand method. Two-hand method?